This is Off Topic, a show where two men with the attention spans of a squirrel try and fail to stay on topic with today's subject. Where will their oral meanderings take us? Well, stick around and listen, because today's Off topic is...
Legend, the movie that I remember watching as a kid, and not many people seem to remember. I don't know. I'll Google it, and it's like everyone's like Legend, but when I talk to people, they're like, "I think I've heard that before." Well,
Legend, the movie's a legend.
yeah, exactly. Well, also when I Googled Legend, there was another Legend that came out with what's his name? Oh no, I'm blanking his name. Bane.
No, that's his actual name. George, what's his name?
Yeah, Bane. Tom Hardy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he did a movie Legend where he played as twins, so he played two roles, and he was British. And I've actually seen
clips. Did wacky hijinks ensue like back in the '90s when this kind of stuff would happen to like Michael Keaton and things?
Yes.
Yes.
It was a
Sweet.
It was a gangster movie. So
wacky gangster hijinks.
A British gangster movie.
No, British people are always funny, always drinking their teas and wearing monocles and stuff.
That's exactly right. Monocles must be had.
Monocles, tea, very harmless people they are.
Yeah, totally harmless. You know, when they ran half the world, they were all it was just like, please do this, and we'll give you a sucker.
Everything was very proper. Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows, everything.
No torture or murder at all.
Nope.
All right, so, you ready?
It's Legend 1985.
Learn about some Legend. It's very clear, 1985. If you actually want to Google this movie, I highly recommend put Legend 1985 because, as you might realize, you just type in Legend in Google, and you'll get that Tom Hardy movie, but you also get like books, comics, video games, I don't know, folklore. Just, Legend's kind of very generic term. So
it's like you're sitting around, you just wrote a book, and you're like, what should I name this legendary story I just wrote?
Yeah. So, if you're going to look up Legend, make sure you add the 1985. That's important in the search.
Also, I do remember this movie, but I never actually saw it. Far as I know, it's just like young Tom Cruise, a big horny Tim Curry, and a horse. And a lot of sexual tension, I assume.
Some.
Yeah, just some.
Just some. Yeah. Anyway, let's go.
Okay, let's go.
Legend is a fantasy movie released in 1985, starring Tom Cruise, Mia Sara, and Tim Curry. Even if you've never seen Legend, you've probably recognized the VHS box art, but we'll get to that later. Speaking of box art, did you see it? I posted it on the... And
I did not, but I actually legitimately remember the box art, though, because it was kind of the cool box art back in the day. Yeah.
Right. Well, but I did post it in the thread. I mean, if you want to take a look at it, a reminder,
it looks like he just blew a giant load in his hand, and he's fantasizing about Tom Cruise in that giant wad.
Right? Now, this actually, people had complaints about this. They thought it was too confusing, so they ended up changing it to a little bit different. Like, there's a little more splash where his hand with Tom Cruise and Mia Sara was a little bit closer, and you actually saw more...
Like the lighting of his face and stuff, wasn't it? It's like brought it closer to him. And
they made it a lot more clear. I still think this one's superior. It's a little more artistic. Plus, you see the villain, but you don't get quite as good a look. You don't really want to get a look at it. You watch the movie, or I guess now you Google it. But so this movie was directed by a little-known director. I hate using words twice, and I can't believe I didn't catch that. Let's try this again. The movie was directed by a little-known director who's since fallen into obscurity. This little-known person named Ridley Scott. But he actually became to be one of the most famous directors out there, although that's arguable. Everyone at least has heard of it. Legend was his fourth movie after movies I've never heard of, which is 1977, The Duelists. Have you ever heard of this movie?
That was that had to do with like a car out in the desert chasing other people in a car, I think.
Okay. I'm not going to look it up. I'll believe you.
I believe it was a horror movie, and it's like people, like a family just driving through the desert, and all of a sudden just this psycho car out of nowhere comes and tries like ramming them off the road and chasing them through the desert, and it's, tension.
There you go. That reminds me a lot of that movie Quentin Tarantino released a while back. Remember that? It was...
Death Grind or whatever it was? Or...
Death
Grindhouse?
Yeah, it was Grindhouse, but Death Proof. Grindhouse was two movies.
Gotcha.
Death Proof was the one he did, which had it was a bunch of stunt ladies out there driving a car, and he tried to kill them, and blah 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 blah.
I always wanted to see that movie, but I never did.
It's worth it. It really is worth it. Like, Kurt Russell being the bad guy on that one. I definitely, that one was a lot wordier because it was, but the second movie was actually pretty good too, which was that one was a zombie one, and that was pretty fun. Neither one were great. My favorite one about the second one, which I can't remember blanking on the name, but what they did was while the movie was playing, they're hyping up to a big final showdown with the zombies, and as they're leading up to it, the film breaks. You know, I did this in the movie. I don't know if they do this in but like the film like stopped and like warped, and
Mm.
it was like the film had broken, and so they spliced two parts of the movie together. So there was a sex scene that was starting to happen. All of a sudden, the film broke, and it cuts to after the big engagement. The house is on fire. The people have died, and like the survivors of the big battle have like come back, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened.
Huh.
It's like I thought
That,
it was pretty cute. I like how they did that.
that's one way to save on budget too. We want this,
Absolutely.
yeah, we want this giant action-packed finale. Well, we're kind of low on money. I have a plan.
That's exactly what happened. I'm sorry. This is driving me. Also, here is Grindhouse is actually Planet Terror, by the way. But Grindhouse is also a genre of movies. So I typed in Grindhouse. It was like, oh, all these movies.
Yeah.
Like, no, I was specifically looking for a certain one. Anyway,
Well, I'll even put $2 down as probably a type of music too, somewhere along the way. Sounds like a
I'm
form
sure.
of metal. Yeah,
I'm sure.
grindhouse metal. Dun, 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 dun.
So anyway, after The Duelist, there's a movie you probably had heard of is 1979's Alien. This movie only started a $1 billion franchise. Most recent entry being Alien Romulus, which you've seen and I have not.
Seen it. It is a good movie.
Yeah, I intend on seeing it. But I'll probably have to wait until it comes streaming. You know, that's just the life I live. There was also another movie in 1982's Blade Runner, a movie most everyone loves the quotes, but either haven't seen or can't remember. And I'm the second one. You know, I remember bits and pieces of it because I know I've seen it. You know, I'm bringing up enough memories to know that I have watched the movie. I just can't really remember it fully.
Believe when I was a little kid, we rented it, and I watched about half hour of it. Kind of got bored and wandered off because it's not an action-packed movie when you hear stuff
Not
about
really.
cyborgs and whatnot. Yeah,
Not really. I mean, I remember a few like, you know, he's going through with a gun and people out of the way and robots and, you know, they're saying like someone had a snake and they're like, is that a real snake? They're like, who do you think I'm rich? Because apparently it, you know,
oh
having
yeah,
a
all
live,
pets were
yeah, we're
all
cybernetic.
animals were dead in the future and stuff like that.
And then of course, you know, he's out there, the main villain, talking about like crying in the rain and
Tears
whatever.
and rain.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So
Apparently Rutger
anyway.
Hauer wrote that line or something like that whole
Oh yeah,
bit. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Apparently.
I like when the actors add something that actually means
Yeah.
something instead of like the actor adds something that's totally pointless and ruins the movie.
Also, there's a little known computer game back in the 90s, Blade Runner. Pretty good. It was like an investigation.
Was it the set from the same thing, or just it just so happened to share a name?
It was from the same world and everything. I don't know if you played the same guy, but yeah, you're tracking down. You'd actually get to interrogate the cyborgs and try to get them to admit what they were. The whole like focus on the eye thing, and you try to get them to react to things. Be like, the one line I remember is you could like pull out a briefcase and be like, "Yes, do you like this briefcase? It's made of real baby skin," and you had to watch their pupils to see how it reacted.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, because if they like reacted weirded out, then you knew it was a human. If they just like had no reaction, it was a robot, or probably me.
Or a psychopath, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So Scott wanted to make a classical family movie for a while. His intention was to make his third release as he was working on his first. So he was already planning his third movie while he was working on his first one. The next movie he wanted to make called was Tristan and Isolde. Tristan and Isolde. I'm probably saying that wrong.
Yeah, it's a very family movie sounding name from back in the time, though.
Well, for various reasons I didn't really look into, the movie was never made. Instead, he made Alien, which I think was probably the better choice. And while he was doing Alien, he started doing pre-production work for Dune, which eventually he abandoned, and Dune was picked up by David Lynch and became what it became.
Yeah.
After Dune imploded for him, he went back to his idea of classical fantasy film. On a side note, I still don't like that Dune. I just don't like it. I read the books, and honestly, the reason why I disliked it most was even before I read the books, I watched. I guess now people consider it pretty cheesy, but like there was a sci-fi miniseries that came out with Dune. I really liked that.
People actually like that, from what I know of.
And it stuck fairly close to the books. And so when I watched David Lynch's, I'm like, what is this? Seriously, what is this?
It's got a battle. It's got Patrick Stewart carrying a battle pug. So
yeah,
your opinion is invalid.
Battle pug trunks everything else.
Yeah, yes, it does. That, and also it's got the better version of Baron Harkonnen in it because he's an actual bad guy in that movie.
True. Well, in the most recent one, he's a pretty bad guy, but yeah, this one
not really. He's kind of just like looking out for his own interest, trying to make sure his own people are in like good positions. Just looking out for his family. Nathan, he's a good man. In the original movie, he pulled out heart plugs and bathed in their blood for no reason. I don't know if you remember that scene, but in the
they also they also trim it down because in the books, like he was he liked the kids, he liked the boy kids.
That was in the that was in the David Lynch movie. He's like, bring me the boy, and they bring him like this little shaved like 18-year-old dude, and he like pulls him and starts like pawing all over him. And then he pulls out the hard plug and his blood sprays all over Baron Harkonnen. He's like, yes, pleasure me. And Sting and the other guy are just standing there being like, ha.
It's fun.
That's why I think, that's why I think he's the more evil guy than the one from the
fair enough.
movies. Yeah,
fair enough.
That dude just kind of sits in his hot tub smoking his pipe, just being like, yes, life is good.
Although he does come across a lot more evil. I guess there's different varieties of evil. You have like Joker evil, then you have, Lex Luthor be evil. So anyway, for Legend, he took inspiration from classical fairy tales, including Brothers Grimm. These, of course, are best known for the dark interpretations, which are now Disney classics. My favorite being Cinderella. At the end of that one, the evil stepmother is forced to dance to death on white hot iron shoes. I always preferred that one to just like, I don't know, the Disney where I guess they just like, she's like, oh, I'm a princess now, bye, and they leave.
Yeah, those Brother Grimm's tales, they had repercussions for what people did in those things.
Oh, absolutely. Like even in they eventually made Cinderella 2 and 3, which, were stupid, but whatever. They still never really had, she never was punished. Even in the third one, I guess, now I have little girls, so I saw it at some point. But like on the third one, I don't remember the second one. Like the one of the sisters actually turns out to be like she's just misunderstood and becomes kind of Cinderella's friend, while the other sister is like still a bitch. I don't know. Whatever. Who cares? We're not talking about that. Anyways, Ridley Scott had the idea of turning a young hermit who is transformed into a hero and rescues the princess from an evil demon, thus saving the world from a winter's curse. Not cursed. Curse. Now in Hollywood, there are tens of thousands of screenplays of all genres floating around. I mean, if you want a screenplay, there's a large dump of screenplays that you can just pick from.
Just ask any waiter in Hollywood and they will have a screenplay for you.
Absolutely. If Scott wanted to, he could have got one of those used as is and rip it apart, leaving only bits of the original intact. And that happens a lot too. You see, this was written by so-and-so, but also don't forget 13 other guys messed with it.
Tweaked for the big screen by all these people, and they just destroy the thing and tear it to shreds. And the poor dude who sold the story is like, please don't do that. They're like, you signed it over to us. Mwahaha.
Yep. Like all they kept was the characters' names, and that was it.
Yeah, basically.
It went from a love story to an action movie.
Yeah.
Instead, he won on the original script. In an interview with Cinefantastique, film critic Alan Jones said this was because he believed, quote, it was far easier to design a story to fit the medium of cinema than bend the medium for an established story, unquote. I'm assuming this guy knows what he's talking about. I don't know who he is, and I didn't really research anything into it. I saw the quote, I liked it, and I ran with it.
Quote, without any further scrutiny on my part, that quote sounds right.
Yeah. You know what? I got that from a very legitimate source called Wikipedia. So
honestly, you can say the same thing about like video games and comic books too. They kind of designed for their own medium, gives you the best stories out of them.
I mean, that is actually true. If you actually, instead of taking something that was written for, I don't know, a book or a miniseries and trying to change it to a movie, that's not going to have the same feel.
A good example, too, would be like VR games. Just trying to take a regular game and putting in VR doesn't work as good as designing something for VR.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So in the original draft of the script, Princess Lily, our heroine, slowly transformed to a furry clawed beast who was beaten but seduced by the antagonist Baron Coeur Deneur. The hero's journey was to be long, with several subplots, and it was quickly decided the quest was to be substantially reduced and avoid any subplot.
I was about to say, the subplot of that had to be all sorts of subtext on bestiality, I would think.
Yeah, it had to be.
Yeah.
But even still, after the revisions, the script called for a lengthy and expensive film that was impractical to shoot, especially in 1985. And there were 15 script revisions. They just weren't ready for the Lord of the Rings style of movie.
They shot for the moon and they realized they could only make it to Puerto Rico.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even with which at the time $25 million to make the movie, which sounds nothing now, but in the 1985 that was nothing. That was a decent amount of movie.
Yeah, and he was a commodity at this time, so they wouldn't mind throwing money at him and stuff.
Yeah, but that was, even with what they want to do, they're like, no. So Scott had actually originally offered the movie to Disney, but they passed on it due to its darker tone, which sounds strange for them to do like now. But if you remember Disney at the time, they were still doing, family-friendly image, like Mickey Mouse.
Rescuers Down Under is like the most hardcore thing we've done.
Yeah. So there was no scary dark films for them at the time. Next, they needed to choose locations. So they scouted several places in sequoias of Yosemite National Park but do the massive scales of the trees, and they loved it. The environment was perfect and stunning. The problem is they couldn't control it. There are way
That's
too
where
many.
the Ewoks parts were shot too for Return of the Jedi.
Oh, really? I
I
actually didn't
think
know that. You'd
so.
think I would.
Yeah. Anyways, continue. Sorry.
But for them, there were too many factors to consider. There was weather, getting the supplies out there, getting electricity. They likely needed to damage a lot of area to get the kind of shots they wanted. And so all these factors were the primary reason why they did not shoot there, because the cost at the time would be astronomical.
And hippie
Instead,
protests.
yeah, true. Instead, they decided to shoot the whole thing on the 007 stage, well, over in England, where they built a forest they could fully control over one they couldn't. And fair enough. You watch the
Yeah.
movie, you even watch the movie, you could tell it's a stage.
Mhm.
You're not getting fooled. However, it works. At no point.
There's really nothing wrong with that.
No, I mean, it doesn't stand out. It's not so fake. You're like, ugh, you're standing on a soundstage. No,
It's not with the cardboard cutouts out and back that people are moving to like
Yeah.
simulate waves.
and it fits the ambiance of the movie. But now they had they had to move on to main cast. First, they needed to cast the lead role of Jack. Though it's never actually used in the film, his full name is Jack in the Green. It's a dumb name, but it's actually a real creature from British folklore. Well, not real, but
Yeah.
Jack the Green is a pagan spirit in the form of a boy who's dressed in leaves and lives in the forest. I did search for some cool backstory or something, but kind of honest, it's kind of lame. He's just a boy who lives in the forest, and that's it. And
People see him every once in a while at the corner of their eye, and he skips away or whatever.
yeah.
On some poor feral kid back in the 1700s living out in the
Right.
woods.
He was lost somewhere, and there's
Yeah.
like, look, there's a boy in leaves. He's Jack in the Green. Like, somebody help that child. He's lost. Like,
No, he's a
got
mythical wood creature. He'll be fine as he's just like shivering and starving to death. No, that's the way they're supposed to look. It's fine.
Oh yeah, it's totally cool. I'm sure he's great. Let's go.
We don't need another kid at home. Let's leave him.
Right, which is actually how he got there in the first place.
Oh, right.
So the original actors considered were Johnny Depp, Jim Carrey, and Robert Downey Jr. And Johnny Depp, right? That's Johnny Depp and RDJ I could see, but yeah, I actually had that on here. But Jim Carrey? Question mark.
Do anything at that point in '85?
Well,
Did he?
at that point in time, he'd only done some stage stuff and
I think he's popped up on Carson once, maybe, because he didn't even do anything in color at that point.
Well, he did do 4 small movies that no one's heard of, but there was one he did do in 1985. While I was researching, I saw this. He did a movie called Once Bitten. It's a cheesy vampire movie that I've actually seen it.
I think I have too.
He's a guy, obviously he's a guy, but he's a guy who gets bitten by this female vampire because he's a virgin, and like,
That's the one where he has got to go like buy pig's blood at the grocery stores because he doesn't want to drink people blood.
Right, and he gets like,
is that the one that this is?
I think so, because I remember all the ins and outs of it. The couple scenes I remember is she bites him like in the groin area. And there was a scene where his girlfriend actually asked 2 of his friends to like see if he got bit there, and so in the showers they try to check.
Yeah, and then they start screaming "Homo alert! Homo alert!" and then they like everybody runs out like what?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I have absolutely seen that movie.
Yep. And then
it wasn't an awful movie. It wasn't a good movie, but I remember laughing about it.
I enjoyed it.
I remember being like, haha, this is entertaining.
And there was like at the end of the movie, like they escape because he finally has sex with a girlfriend in a coffin. And once he lost his virginity, then she was no longer like the vampire didn't want him anymore. So I guess she only went for virgin teens. But of course, he looked 26. He was a He was a in the 80s, he looked like a high schooler from movies.
Yeah, back when high schoolers in movies were 28 years old.
And Tom Cruise got this role after The Outsiders and Risky Business. So he wasn't a no-name, but he wasn't a household name yet. That happened after
Top Gun was
Legend.
what like pushed him to household, I would say, wasn't it?
That's actually, I have on here. Which happened immediately after Legend. So Legend was 1985, 1986, Top Gun came out. So that's when he became Tom.
The Tom, yeah.
Yeah, the
worldwide
Tom Cruise.
sensation Tom Cruise. Because you're right. Before that, he was just he was like actor Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
People liked him, but they weren't like, oh my God, it's Tom Cruise.
Yeah, you'd say Tom Cruise, like Tom in Risky Business, something like that.
Yeah. He was that dude in Risky Business. I remember that with the sliding across the floor in his socks. Neat.
The role of Princess Lily went to an actress named Mia Sara. She hadn't done much outside of one episode of All My Children, and she was mainly known for her stage work, which actually impressed Scott. Unfortunately, her career never really took off after this. She did a lot of movies I never heard of and like one-off characters on TV shows like Chicago Hope and CSI. But she did actually, little side note, she did play Dr. Harleen Quinzel on Birds of Prey, that Batman show that didn't go anywhere, that didn't have Batman, that came out like 20 years ago. You remember that?
Not the
Like
movie, the TV show.
TV show, yeah. Birds of Prey came out like it was in the early 2000s, and it didn't have Batman in it, and like it was basically an all-female cast. And Dr. Harleen Quinzel was at the time she like started off as one of their like friends, and obviously she turns evil at some point. She never actually becomes Harley Quinn, but it's yeah, it's kind of hinted that she's gonna be evil.
It's also in Time Cop, the movie that influenced Liquid Nitrogen for all of us.
You are jumping ahead. You're like almost like it's like you're looking over my shoulder, reading a script. It's not bad. No, don't stop. Because my next line is, for me, I remember from 1994's Time Cop. Where she was a love interest of Jean-Claude Van Damme, who went back in time by shooting themselves very fast at a wall. I love this movie, but it was so fucking stupid. I mean, you remember that? They like got a little crash test dummy car and flung themselves at a wall. And it didn't make any sense because they would show up at whatever time they were going for without being in a car. And then they would like get the person they were actually going after, then hit a button, and then they were back in the car. You know, like it didn't. I don't know how that worked. You know, it was like
plot magic.
Yeah, exactly. Like they were going back in time, and they got the guy. Like I got this guy. He was a time slipper. Blah 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 blah. So yeah, the movie's so dumb. Anyway, she was his love interest in that movie. That whenever I see her, that's always the first thing that pops up, which is weird because you would think, aside from Legend, I would actually remember her for her more popular role, which is 1986 Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which she did right after this. So you'd think, you know, being a much bigger film than either Legend or Time Cop, you would think people would think I would have thought her first from Ferris Bueller's, but I didn't. I thought of her from Time Cop. Surely you've seen. I know you've seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Actually, no, I have not seen it. But here's the thing: I've seen so many like clips and excerpts and spoofs of it. I'm pretty sure I got the whole movie down.
One scene I always think about that movie, and it's like it's totally inappropriate, but like she's in school, right? So Ferris Bueller, he's playing sick, he's getting out of school, and his girlfriend is in school, so he wants to get her out of school so they can have a fun day out. And he convinces his best friend to give him his dad's favorite car. I mean, Ferris Bueller pressures his friend to give him his dad's favorite car, and they go to the school to pick his girlfriend up. Well, he's playing her dad, pretending to be, and so he has a trench coat on and a hat and sunglasses, and he's waiting for her in the parking lot, and she's leaving school, and the principal's standing there on the front steps, and he's watching her go out there, and as she walks up, he playing the dad deeply like tongue kisses his girlfriend in front, and now again, principal, that's your dad. And all he goes is, so that's why she's so weird. Nah, man, you're a mandated reporter. You just saw this teenage girl getting tongue kissed by her dad. Do something, anything, like even just call CPS.
You're forgetting, Nate. This is the 80s. People didn't do this in the 80s.
Very true.
This is the whole call CPS and report it. That happened because of these things happening in the 80s and nobody reporting it. Remember, the 80s is literally the time you could go up to any elementary school and be like, "Yeah, I'm little Joey's dad's friend from work. I'm here to pick him up," and they just be like, "Here we go." And you just drive off with any kid you wanted from school back then, Nate. And the kid would be like, "I don't know that man. He says he's your dad's friend from work. That's why you don't know him. Just go with him." And you're like, "Ah." So yeah, no, that's not surprising.
There's a reason like podcasts like Last Podcast to the Left exists because
yes, exactly.
Just, I don't know. You pick up a victim just off the street.
Yep. And if you couldn't get one from school, just find a latchkey kid. Be like, "Hey, kid, your parents home?" "No." "All right."
And the ironic thing is the guy who played the dad in that show, or the guy who played the principal in that show, I said dad because I was also thinking of Beetlejuice. He would turn out to be a pedophile. So
he did.
Well, was he? I know he got caught with child.
He was exchanging naked pictures with a child. According to him, he never had sex with him though. But
okay. Let's all just take his word for that, I guess.
Yeah, it's not something I ever put a whole lot of research into though. But
no, I wouldn't either. Yeah, but it's just like a lot of people have found out recently though, and they're like, go to Google, why isn't he in Beetlejuice?
Oh yeah. Oh my.
Oh my. Yeah, exactly. Oh my.
I'm sure. Is he still alive?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure he'll be showing up on like Joe Rogan's podcast to tell us.
Yeah, I looked up recently because I wanted to see, because again, that's the kind of conversation we were having. Jenny is like, "Is he still alive?" "Yeah, he's still alive."
Yeah, because
I was like, "Is he still married?" He is not still married. So, all that being said, Scott needed to do a perfect casting for the villain role, and he needed someone who could act through layers of makeup and come off across as believable. He needed someone who could be willing to swing from the rafters, and find him he did. Darkness, a massive, muscular red demon with goat legs and gigantic black horns. I mean, these damn horns are iconic. Each thick black horn is approximately 3 feet and surprisingly light after a few failed attempts. They were also made to wear large, yellow, slitted, uncomfortable contacts and talk through a mouth of massive fangs. Which actor could pull this feat off? Tim fucking Curry is who could.
Who could pull off a giant, muscular red demon, a small, pasty British man?
Damn straight. And it was his performances on the Rocky Horror Picture Show that attracted Scott to pull him in. And he was right to do so because Curry, seriously, he pulled it off. And
he's one of those actors, kind of like John Lithgow and a few others. He's good in whatever role you put him in just because he can, act.
Yeah. Well, and also Curry can really emote and just, really, not so much nowadays, but, that's for different reasons.
Yeah. Stroke.
So, but the main characters of, of these main characters of legend, there were still a few notable roles, like lesser roles, but they needed to be there. First, there was Jack's raspy, half-naked elf named Honeythorpe Gump, and he was played by David Bennett, who, after this...
played Doctor Who?
No, that's David Tennant. Bennett with a B. Yeah, this guy, you've never heard of him. I mean, she's done other things, I'm sure, but nothing you've ever heard of. The stalkery fairy Una, who stands Jack, was played by Annabelle Layton. For some reason, I like using the word stands.
Probably from your kids.
No, I heard that one day. I was like, oh, I like that.
You're probably the only person over the age of 40 I know that uses it.
Oh, really? Well, there you go.
Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong on
which
that.
Which is ironic because a lot of people who are like the younger kids saying stands, I'm like, you weren't even alive when that song came out. Anyway,
what song?
Really?
Yeah.
It's an Eminem song.
I don't listen to Eminem, so yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't either anymore. But back in the early 2000s, I did. Yeah, there was that. Basically, Stan refers to a song Eminem did. I think it was called Stan. Anyway, about
the South Park episode where they're like Stan with Stan or whatever it was.
Oh, okay, that's funny.
Stand with Stan.
So the two dwarves that tagged along were Brown Tom, played by Cork Hubbard, and Screwball, played by Billy Barty. Of these two, you probably only recognize Billy Barty. He's one of those little person actors who's been in a shit ton of stuff.
Yep, I looked at him. I recognize him from, a ton of stuff back in the day.
Yeah. And actually, right off the bat, I recognize him as Gwildor from Masters of the Universe. That's right, tie-in from the last episode I wrote, off topic.
Haha. Check out that episode for more info on him.
And yes, I did that intentionally.
Good job.
Yeah, that's the ticket. I did it on purpose.
214 acting credits. Oh, wow. He's even the voice in the new Batman adventures. Well, back in 97, but yeah.
Yeah, he did a bunch of shit. Like, seriously, like when you think about little people actors, he's one of the first with the popular. It's first, let's be real. Almost everyone thinks of Warwick
Davis.
Yeah, Warwick Davis, Jesus Christ. Yeah, Warwick Davis is the first person people use it. At least me. I think
the second one is the Game of Thrones dude whose name I can't think of.
Actually, nowadays,
I know things. Nowadays, it probably is that guy.
Actually, he's number one. It's my age saying that Warwick Davis is number one, but it is
Peter Dinklage. There we go.
Thank you, Mike.
The Dinkle.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage is absolutely number one nowadays. And number two, Warwick Davis. But this guy, I don't know if he's number three or not, but he's definitely high. He's in the top five. You see him, he's like, oh, you're that guy.
Also, another one I'd argue is the one dude with the monocle from fucking Time Bandits. That dude was in a ton of them back in the day. Anyways, that's little people talk with off topic. There's
a very famous black little person too.
Oh yeah, he was in like Friday and stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, and he was in Bad Santa.
Oh wow, Robert Picardo was in this too. Sorry, I got ahead of you.
No, it's all good. I didn't really go deeper in that. So let's see. Okay, so those were Jack's friends, but let's not forget Darkness. Well, he doesn't really have friends. He wouldn't be a proper Dark Lord if he had friends. He had minions. But the lead henchman or henchwoman was Blix, played by Alice Playton. On the few videos I watched of him, the researchers, they love talking about her makeup. It was modeled using Keith Richards as a reference, just like Jack Sparrow. Although, they did do it first. They made her all disgusting, but you could see the similarity. And I did load her picture up on the comparison between her and David. And I guess, maybe they started off, but they added a really big nose, and long ears, slime.
I guess wrinkly and a big forehead. I guess I see it.
I mean, I guess maybe on set it was a little more noticeable because a lot of people would walk up to her and she's like, "You look familiar," and she's like, "Oh, Keith Richards." I'm like, "Oh, I see it," but looking at images, so I don't know. I guess Then
Yes,
again,
kind of just also just kind of
I'm
looks like
not.
generic creepy British person. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, if you say you're like, quick, what does Keith Richards look like? I mean, white.
a worn baseball glove, a worn
Yeah, I
catcher's
mean,
mitt. I mean,
if I saw him on screen, like, oh, that's Keith Richards, but I don't think about him enough to really like bring his face up on command.
he looks
So,
like living embodiment of mesothelioma.
right. So Blix has two cronies to follow around: a pig man named Pox, played by Peter O'Farrell, and a small black knight called Blunder, played by Kieran Slash. The last actor worth mentioning only had one scene in the movie, and who boy, what a scene! The character is Med Mucklebone. She's a hideous swamp monster, creature, witch, goblin thing that has gnarled, wrinkled green skin, extra long fingers, and long claws. She was played by Robert Picardo, best known for his role in Star Trek Voyager. He was also a hologram person who showed up in Star Trek First Contact and DS9, which one day I swear I will write a
Ha!
podcast on. Like, I keep on saying, Deep Space Nine is my favorite. I'll fight anybody who says it's not the best. And I still stand by that, and I still have every intention of writing the podcast about it. I just
It's just
keep on.
it's a huge undertaking. I
It's like something I want to give the proper respect to and actually like really dive deep. And it's almost to the point like there's actually on YouTube there's these people who do podcasts in every episode of Star Trek Next Generation, and they just recently picked up Deep Space Nine and like, oh man, I would really love to like do a podcast kind of like focusing on each episode, but that would be a whole thing. I'm just not in a space that I have the time, energy, or will to dedicate to. So I just don't know how deep I should go to really like satisfy what I want to do for it. So it keeps on getting pushed back.
Ricardo
A lot
also did Two-Face at one point.
did he?
Yeah, for one of the cartoons.
Oh, of
Yeah,
course.
he actually has over 250
Oh yeah,
things on IMDb.
he's
Yeah, I recognize
pretty
him right off the bat. He's been in a million and one things.
Oh yeah. Well, the one thing I actually listed on here that I had forgotten he did that I loved as a kid, for around the same time, I had forgotten he was the cowboy in Inner Space. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes, I did. Oh, actually, I don't remember Cowboy from Inner Space.
Well, he was the generic villain. Like he's the guy trying to kill the main character.
Apparently,
He had he was the one who had like a hidden gun in his finger. He would point. Anyway.
Okay, I kind of vaguely remember that. It's been a while since I've seen Inner Space.
Oh yeah, dude, Inner Space.
Yeah,
is
that was
not-
one where they got shrunken
yeah.
down and injected into what's his butt, wasn't it?
Oh my God, I see his face.
Short,
He was
Martin
the-
Short.
Martin Short.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, listeners, listen. I have a trouble with names. Okay, this is going to continue to happen. I'm sure you've noticed it before, and you'll notice it going forward. If there's a name, probably forgot about it. I actually
I'm
currently
no better, so.
Well, and here's what really sucks. I work at the post office now, and everyone there, some of these people have been there for years, pushing 10 years. Like these people, I'm at a place that this is going to become, just like you, I'm sure you work in a place. Like I've always worked in places where it's like, okay, it's a revolving door. Anybody here can leave at any minute. Anybody here can be fired at any minute. It's no one or very few people are like, this is where they're going to retire.
Yeah.
And you work in a place like that, or you're working in a place like, no, seriously, this is your job. You can go to retirement with this. And this is the first time I've actually worked somewhere where like, no, seriously, I could go to retirement. So I've worked with people who have been here for quite a while, and I barely know anyone's name there.
This is
And
the
it
first
really
job you've
sucks.
ever had where it might pay off to remember somebody's name, and you're just
Yeah.
like, I can't after
Yeah.
40 years of not doing it. I know exactly
Well,
what you mean.
Not just like their names, but like the names and the routes they do. So they called me in. They're like, oh, yeah, so and so called in, and then you need to work for it. I'm like, okay, cool. And I walked in, like, okay, what route am I on? They're like, they just looked at me like, 13. I'm like, and here's the thing, the route, because I'm a RCA right now, so I'm not quite a full-time. I'm not quite. It'll take at least a year before I can become full-time. But like, I come in, and the person I'm assigned to actually like the main route I'm on is 13 for that person, and I didn't know their name, and I didn't know what they were doing. So
Sure, I'll do little Susie's route.
yeah, so I really need to start like putting a concentrated effort to start remembering people's name there, because this is unless they let me go for some reason that I don't know. This is where I plan to be. Unless my art career this takes off, my art career takes off, I'll burn the place to the ground. But assuming that that doesn't happen, this is where I'm going to be. So I really need to start remembering people's names, like a concentrated effort.
When you get introduced to somebody, that one trick they say actually does help. That stupid trick when you shake their hand, you repeat their name back to them like twice.
Yeah.
They're like, hi, I'm Jim. You grab their hand, you shake it, you're like, hi, Jim. Nice to meet you, Jim. I'm Sean. That actually does help, even though you feel like a total tool doing it.
Well, the problem is now I've been there long enough that like a lot of people I've talked to multiple times who I don't remember the names, it would look real bad, including like one of my managers. I know my main manager, but there's another manager there who calls me, talks to me. She actually tries to hook me up, and like I have no fucking clue her name is.
Okay,
So,
here's how you get the introductions back in. All you have to do is figure out the way to royally cheese them off, and then immediately be like, "Oh no, we got off on the wrong foot. Hold on, introductions again," and then you do it. See, all you
well,
gotta do is just cheese them off really bad and be like,
what
"Sorry,
I,
sorry." Yeah.
what I'm hoping will happen, what I hope happens is like I just listen for her name. So like while I'm around them, I'm like trying to see if I can see her like name tag or her like whatever, and like I'm waiting for somebody to say her name. Like I heard someone say it earlier, like yesterday, but I didn't quite hear it, so it's an A word, but I don't know what it is. So
It's
anyway,
an A name.
it is name. So back to the Legend. The prosthetics on Legend were seriously on point. Like at the time of production, Legend held the record for the largest makeup crew ever dedicated to one project. As the cast came on board, the crew immediately took casts of their bodies and drafted images of how they'd eventually look. Between 8 and 12 prosthetics were attached to each of the actors' faces, of about approximately 3.5 hours per actor. The actor who had it worst by far was Tim Curry. This poor bastard spent most of his time in the chair with all the shit they had put on him. Never mind the large bull-like horns at his head. As I mentioned, these were 3 foot fiberglass horns held together by a harness. They actually went through a couple iterations. The first one, it wasn't super heavy, but it was too heavy for someone to wear on any kind of like constant basis on their neck.
Yeah.
But they eventually did make a fiberglass. So once they actually put it on there, from what I read, like it actually wasn't. For as big as they were, you'd think they were really heavy. But what they finally kind of like figured out was how to make it not.
I was about to say they probably built like a neck brace into it that went down
Yeah,
to the shoulders or some kind of
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
They got him to where he was
Like
at
one of
least.
those crown setups that people with broken necks wear, something
Yeah.
similar to that,
Well,
probably.
not because he still had to move his head and stuff, but they definitely did like they helped him out as much as they could.
He can move his head,
And
but Batman couldn't. That's hilarious.
exactly. Well,
Uh,
and of course, what I would consider the worst torture was those contacts I mentioned. They jammed their eyes. Like I don't like contacts anyway. Even putting regular contacts in, I don't like doing it. I couldn't
and
imagine
those
putting.
fake contacts are nightmares from what I've
Oh my
heard.
god! And plus, it was big enough to cover like the whites of his eyes, so they were like large contacts they put in his eyes. And there was also a scene early on in the movie, like the first time they introduced him, like he was like in a blacklight situation, and his eyes were glow green, like his teeth glowed green, his nails glowed green, and his eyes glowed. So they were, I'm sure those weren't comfortable. Never
Yeah.
mind the
And also, usually you can't see diddly crap out of those kind of contacts either.
yeah.
Like that little slit in the eyes, that's probably all you could see out of most of the time, from what I've heard,
Right.
anyways.
And especially the first time with those light green, he probably couldn't say anything. But fortunately, he didn't have to look at anybody. He was just kind of talking to the air, so he didn't really need.
Sitting on his
He
throne,
was he
monologuing,
was
basically.
exactly 100%. You totally nailed it. He was sitting in his throne, monologuing, and just like talking to his minions who happened to be around him, but no one specific. So he didn't have to like make eye contact.
I like those kind of villains, actually, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just the imposing villain doesn't have to do much, just sit there and be
evil. Well, in the making of I saw for the special edition DVD, they basically said like after being in the chair for so long, a lot of his complaints would kind of slip away once he actually saw himself. He stood up, he looked at himself in the mirror, he's like, "Damn, I look."
Because I'm guessing he's
good.
like in the chair like 3 in the morning in makeup for about 4 hours to get all that done.
Minimum. I think I saw like
probably
6 to 8
6
hours.
hours. How long?
Yeah, 6 to 8 hours is how much.
6 to 8 hours. That sounds about right. Yeah. Because that kind of makeup takes forever. I remember hearing the dude Worf talk about just his makeup was like 5 or 6 hours, I think.
Ugh,
and that's not as intricate as this is, I don't think.
No. And basically, as Marvel as he would at how he looked at the beginning, at the end of the day, he was done. And he had to sit, he basically had to go in a bath and to liquid the soluble gum spirit that was like with spirit gum that held everything together. And occasionally, Curry would just like lose it and he would rip the prosthetics off. He just couldn't take it anymore. Unfortunately, this would sometimes take skin off him in the meantime.
Yeah, because they're basically caulking it to him, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean.
And so when this happened, they would actually have to shoot around him for about a week because the damage that happened, like they had to give him time to heal up enough. They could put the stuff back on him. And that was unfortunate. It didn't sound like it happened a lot, but it happened off and on. Because if it happened a lot, that would be a big issue for production. But fortunately, it wasn't too bad. And of course, the filming had a share of issues as well. The biggest hitch they hit was the studio burning down about 10 days before filming. They lost everything. You know,
But
the
that'll do it.
whole, yeah, like the entire forest they made was all gone. It was like real bad. And it was pretty lucky too. Like everyone's on break at the time. Like there was no one really in the building when it happened. So,
Do they know what
no
the
one.
cause of the fire was, or?
I think it was an electrical issue. It was very
Gotcha.
generic. I didn't see any like, it was this, but it wasn't arson or anything. It was just, someone somewhere did something stupid and it lit on fire.
Whenever
And
somebody says it's an electrical thing, I think of that Futurama episode where I think it's God talking to Bender's like, yes, you could just burn it down and claim the insurance as an electrical thing. Anyways.
But yeah, I mean, no one was hurt. But they did lose a lot of money. Honestly, though, like since most of the shooting was already done, they didn't lose a ton of time. It was expensive, and they kind of had to fix things to wrap it up. Sorry to say my microphone. But it was fine. The people who were affected was the upcoming James Bond movie they're about to shoot. Because again, this took place in a studio. It was called the 007 studio. This is where they shot 007. So yeah, they definitely took a hit because they were like, we're using it next. No, we haven't shot anything yet. And that's all for this episode of Off Topic. We discussed the legend from conception to production. Next time we'll talk the movie itself, along with 3 reasons why the theatrical ending is bullshit. Thanks for listening.
This is where the ending jingle goes. This is where the ending jingle goes. I don't know if we need one. I don't know if we'll get one. But if we do, then here is where it goes.